All right, let's do it.
Sweet. Welcome to DenverScript! Yes, I go for 10. Like there is a massive audience here, but it's okay. It's the best audience. So what's up? Better be that mask. Good. All right. Code Talent is one of our sponsors. As the building you're in right now, if you've never heard of them before, they do recruitment. So if you need talent for a job posting or you're looking for a job, I highly recommend. They've gotten me like 2 or 3 of my jobs, so definitely recommend talking to them. So thanks, Code. Also, they are supplying us with free beer, the beer fridge behind there, so thank you for the beer, Code Talent. Well, Mike would normally do this part, but I'll see if I can do this. Quizlet is also their sponsor. They are basically an online platform for creating flashcards. If you want to learn something, somebody has probably already made a course on learning whatever it is you're looking to learn. So that's the best I can do, Mike. It's your fault you're not here. So thank you, Quizlet. So normally we would have a shorter presentation, but CJ totally decided not to. Okay, CJ. We just didn't get anyone for that, but it's okay. 6:30. Well, actually, I take back. We'll immediately after listening to me, we'll jump straight to Cass. We are an open collective, so we can take donations as a nonprofit. These donations go for running our meetup account, trying to get food at some point back when we think eating and touching people's food at the same time is a good idea. Yeah. So you can give us like as small as what you want. It can be a monthly occurrence, it can be a one-time thing. Anything helps, and we really appreciate it. But Garrett, he's been a long-time contributor. $5 every month. We love you, Garrett. Quizlet gave us some money for our meetup account. And Jake, he's not here, but Jake is a new recurring $5 a month supporter. So thank you for our supporters. This just talks about the collective, just gloss over. So what's going on in JS?
JavaScript land. All right. So what's going on in JavaScript land? Okay, so let's see. I wonder if we actually, do we have any first-timers here? Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. Because we usually have like a pretty good mix. And then like with the small return, I was like, oh, I wonder if maybe it'd be the first time we've done our first time. All right, so since we have some newcomers, we do this every month. It's called What's Going On in JavaScript Land. And we talk about the stuff that we're excited about, and then we ask you guys what you guys are excited about. And when we go into it, you'll see like literally anything at all. It could be as high level as software development in general, or like JavaScript language specific, or new stuff in a framework, or it could be things that aren't necessarily new, but they're new to you, or something that you're excited about. We call those, it's down at the bottom, we call those high five moments. So whenever there's a new DevTools released, that's what I get excited about. So I usually kick us off. So Chrome 94 is out. Let me do this. I'm gonna walk in front of you, sorry. I don't look back. Okay. All right. Gotta make sure they can see me at home. Okay. Chrome 94 is out. So as always, we have a link to the highlights video and also the release notes. So if there's any stuff that you find interesting, you can see additional detail there. Stuff that we're excited about. Oh yeah, this is kind of cool. You can now use DevTools in your preferred language. So if you're not a native English speaker, they've uploaded more than 80 different languages that the different tools in DevTools are now in. And then along those lines, if you speak another language and you want to help out the Chrome DevTools team, you can go to that link that we posted there. If when you're scanning DevTools in your other preferred language, if you find any bugs or typos or things that are grammatically incorrect, they're actively accepting feedback on some of that stuff. So that's kind of cool. So for the Google Nest Hub, you know how you guys, if you go into DevTools and you go to a little device emulator, you can see what it looks like on different device resolutions. They've now added a resolution for the Google Nest. So if anybody's doing any IoT stuff with Google Nest, you can now visualize that. The same way you can do with the mobile stuff. Origin Trials is pretty cool. I'd never heard of this before. Has anybody heard of Origin Trials? So apparently it's been out for a bit, but Origin Trials is a thing you can opt into, and you sign up for it, and then they'll give you access to sort of the Canary new features, and you can test out the new Chrome DevTools features as they're being released. So if that's something that you're interested in, it sounds pretty cool. You can go to that link, origin trials, and there's information there about it. There's a few other things that came out, but the last one I think was kind of cool is in your network filters, you can now type in, well, they added some intelligent like filtering that you could like type into the search filter box, but now they also added an invert filter toggle. So for example, like if you go to like network and you go status equals 404, then you can like hit invert, and so basically you just see all of the network traffic that was not 404s, for example. So you can come up with some clever logic that way. You know, kind of a nice little syntactic sugar there. It's too bad that Mike's not here. He gave us an update on the pipeline operator. So for those that are not newcomers and have been following DenverScript for a while, Mike Frazier has been keeping us posted on the pipeline operator for probably like 2 years now, as it's been moving its way through the approval process. I have not actually run this out of time. It is now in stage 2, and it's kind of a shit show when it comes to what the syntax will be. Oh, I see. So yeah, so as it moves through the different stages, so those that aren't familiar with the approval process, as it moves through the different stages, as it gets closer and closer to actually being formally adopted into the language. I'm sorry, yeah, I guess I was like right on the other side of the screen, so I was like this the whole time. So here, I'll do this, that way you don't have to like lean over. As it moves through the approval process, as it goes through the stages, they're kind of like toll gates in terms of how much things will also be changing as they move through. And so what you'll find in the earlier stages is that there'll be like sometimes competing proposals on syntax and things, and the dust kind of settles itself as it goes near the end. And usually I think when it gets to like, are you familiar? Like maybe stage 4, it's like
basically if it makes it to stage 3, it's like they've decided on a path.
Right.
And stage 4 is
like this is what it's going to look like.
details.
Right, exactly. Once it makes it to stage 4, you can be pretty confident that like, okay, this is probably what it's going to be. So like, if you're somebody who uses like Babel and you like to use like the early pre-release stuff, you know, a good line to draw it out is usually stage 4. So we're only in stage 2, so this is very much the sort of like hashing through stuff to see where it's actually going to be the syntax. Oh, cool. Strings and arrays now have an at method. Cool. I'm not sure what's different than that. So, ready? Let's do some audience participation. Does anybody off the top of their head see what is different about that versus doing bracket notation? Like, why would you want to do that? At 3. Yeah, I know. I guess it's just running it as a function where you pass an argument instead of just doing bracket notation. So, cool. Okay. I don't know, because you can put expressions in a bracket notation, so I don't know why. Well, anyway, so that's a thing, and that's what Mike's excited about. Okay, so what are you guys excited about? And so you saw like these are 2 examples of really high-level things, but it could be framework stuff, or it could be a high-five moment. Like what we always tell people, it's like, even if something's been out forever, and it's just like you just figured out how to solve this like really gnarly bug you've been working on for a week, you know, or like there's a framework that you just came across, it's been around forever, but you're just excited to use it. You're in a safe space here of other nerds that will appreciate it with you, so feel free to share. What are you guys excited about? And for those of you following along at home, I can see the chat here, so let me know anything you're excited about. All right, looks like digital creation and cheddar have nothing yet. What are you guys excited about? Anyone? This can be anything at all that has to do even tangentially or related to coding. Matt, you got anything? Yeah, great.
Well, no, I'm saying I froze.
Yes.
I've been working with some machine learning libraries and JS.
Oh, cool. What?
TensorFlow.js.
TensorFlow.js? How do you like it so far?
It's not too bad. There's a ton of demos and people have done a lot of work on it. So there's a decent bit of machine learning stuff you can do right on the browser.
Oh, super cool. That I don't think we've ever had a talk on anything like that before. Like that'd be a really, if you wouldn't mind, like that'd be a really cool.
I'll probably do it.
We already submitted.
Oh, fantastic! Look at that. You're so good that you knew I was going to say that, and so you already did it ahead of time. Awesome. See, just in time. But so yeah, cool. You're going to give a talk on it, and in terms of getting up and running, have you just been using their docs, or how have you been learning it?
There's a bunch of demos and projects that people have made using different machine learning models, and so I kind of work off of both their documentation and like the code that's already been written in these demos, and then I kind of work on top of that. So.
Nice, sweet. Okay, cool. What else are you guys excited about? let's do at least a couple more things. So we've got, so William is letting us know from home that the resolution's not great. We're aware of that. Because this is literally streaming off of the webcam on my laptop. We're trying to work on improving that moving forward.
They dropped support for my GoPro, so they're jerks.
Yeah, we thought we were gonna use a GoPro, and it didn't work out. So let's do like a couple more things people are excited about. That? I don't know, man. All right, well this well is dried up, so I need you guys to help me out with like, there we go, CJ.
Basically, it makes it so that within your package or JSON, you can define what your preferred package manager is, and it'll manage, it'll use that under your meeting space. So, let's say your team prefers Yarn, it will automatically use Yarn, or if you were to use like PNPM, but it's a native feature.
Is it limited to?
It's called what? Core pack, and you just put it into your package JSON.
Yeah, there's like that option.
Awesome. So if those couldn't hear, there's there you go. Core pack is now a property you can put in package JSON to say what is your preferred package manager, whether it's Yarn or NPM or whatever. Super cool. That's pretty neat.
CJ, do you know if that's limited to just like Yarn and NPM, or it's like Water That's the only one I can think of.
The actual docs, and right now it mentions they support Yarn and PNPM. That's another cool one for PNPM. PNPM manages your node dependencies, but uses symbols for everything, so you only have one copy of the dependency.
Oh, nice.
PNPM?
All right, let's do one more. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that reminded me of this NPM. I hadn't heard of it, but I discovered this library, I think it's called npkill. Provides like a command line interface for deleting all your node modules in the machine. So, like, you do like a bunch of like JavaScript projects, you have like installed all these like node modules, like, and your entire machine, right, like takes up a lot of open space. So, yeah, this like a library that kind of, it'll find all of them and then review them and like, delete them all.
Wow.
So,
Cool.
Yeah.
That's like, yeah, like to-do app genocide. You
Yeah,
can just go through and just clean them
exactly.
all out. Like,
Well, my MacBook is running out of disk space, so I was like.
so now I'm genuinely curious. Like,
yeah,
what-
so
how much did it add up to?
Exactly.
So how much did you actually save when you went through it? Did it?
Gigabytes. Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Holy shit! Now I really want to try that.
Yeah, seriously.
That's unreal. Yeah, because you don't, at least for me, like you don't really even think about that.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Cool. NP pill.
I'm pretty sure that's it.
Okay. So
I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
yeah, and then yeah, it's worth mentioning too that so for all the stuff here, let's see if we had any on the chat. No. So for all this stuff here, Matt always does a really good job of then following these different things and putting links, and then we will drop all of these in the meetup comments on the meetup page where you found out about this today. So sweet. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It's all yours, man. Ooh, I like that. I feel like I'm.
Cool. Does anyone have any job announcements they want to announce?
Oh, let's see what's in it. And on the chat, you can also, if you have any job announcements, drop them in the chat. And we'll also put those in the meetup as well.
I work for Aetna, so we are always looking for web engineers, mobile and backend and all kinds. So if you're any kind of engineer, you're interested, come talk to me. Look for answers. Code of conduct, be excellent to each other, be inclusive, invite others to chat. No statement questions, especially to our speakers, like, well, here's what I would have done differently or something. Like, our speakers work really hard on their presentations and don't make take. Is pretty much our theme. If you need to see the full code of conduct, please go to DenverScript.com, which is also a link farm and basically all the other things, YouTube channel, donating links, any of those things. Call for speakers. We're always looking for speakers. if you are interested in speaking, please feel free to reach out to Guillermo, myself, Mike, who's not here, your meetup on meetup.com, Twitter, Slack, whatever. You can get a hold of us in one way or the other. So yeah, any talks are welcome, so please feel free to reach out.
And it looks like Ombud has a few openings. Devin just put in the chat, and he's going to drop the link in the chat, and we'll also put it on the meetup page as well. Oh, and Devin, actually, if you can also drop it in the comments section of the meetup page, that'll be helpful.
Sweet. Well, that might have been the fastest we ever went through his deck.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's take like a few minute break, people to get a new beverage, use the restroom, and next we'll be talking about what is serverless framework. Woo! Did I get that right? Okay, it has to do with serverless, so there's that.
All right, sweet. Yeah, feel free to drive members in the back. All of those are up for grabs. We have water somewhere.
Thank you all for bringing masks. Didn't even have to dig in my stash. There we go. I know. That's what we call it.
Yeah. I did not choose to receive it live. I did that. Not that. I mainly focused on transcript. So, I thought it was really cool. So I really hate like when we're doing like web design that a lot of designers use the vector images and they look really kind of basic. I hate that. And so I was thinking it would be cool to like kind of take styles and but maybe like a color print kind of style and then take like a picture and then style things and then post it longer than you use it.
All right.
Okay.
Cassandra Torske, everybody! Woo!
Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about the serverless framework, and as a note, I'm not affiliated with them at all. I just think it's neat. So I'll be talking to you about it today and demoing it a bit. First off, my name is Cass, in case you do not know me. I am an instructor of front-end engineering at Trent School of Software and Design. Before that, I worked as a consultant for a firm where I used the serverless framework. And then before that, I was at a product company where I also used the serverless framework. So I've used it in production twice. I don't claim to be like an expert in it, but hopefully I know enough about it to help you get started if you are interested in trying it out. We need to start off with some definitions. If you're anything like me, when my boss first came to me, here's what you're going to be working with. I was like, cool, what does this mean? Well, serverless architecture. It's really just a way of building and running apps and services without having to do with infrastructure. So you're not provisioning or maintaining or scaling databases. Somebody else has to deal with that. That's kind of the beauty of this. I'm not here to say that this is the one way to do it and the best way to do it. It is just a way to do it. Depending on your project or your goals, this could work for you, but it also might not be the way you want to go. Serverless framework specifically is a tool that you can use to build, compile, package, and deploy your code to the cloud. There are other tools out there as well. I don't know why we used it in the past. It's pretty approachable. That's probably why. This is kind of a newer concept, I guess, in the last like 6 years or so. So Serverless Framework has kind of pulled that ahead, and they've got a lot of tools and communities that you can use that make life a little easier when you're building serverless apps. So why? As I mentioned earlier, this might not be the best choice for you, but it might be the best choice for you if you really just want to focus on code and you don't want to deal with working with servers. In my last project, we basically had months to go from nothing to production. And that was on a team with me, who's kind of like a mid-level, and 3 brand new, fresh-faced juniors. So how do you build a huge app for a huge university? Did it get really loud on this? Okay. How do you build an app for a huge university in just a few months? And the name of the game was finding ways to do things quickly. Serverless framework was one of the ways we decided to do things quickly, and I think it worked. It wasn't the only reason we were fast, but it was one of them, because I didn't have to spend all my time finagling a server that I knew nothing about, because I only know how to code. I don't know how to mess with servers. So this was a good solution for us. There were other tools as well that we used that helped us be fast, but this was one of them. And I just think it's neat. There is some, like, I don't want to say propaganda, but like whatever word is similar for like non-political things, that serverless, the architecture, is going to make everything cheaper and faster, and you're going to get to spend a lot more time coding. That's possible. I'm sure that's true in some cases. I never saw any receipts, so I can't stand here and tell you, like, yes, this is cheaper and it's going to be easier. But the main idea is because you're not spending time messing with servers, you could spend that time building features. And it also means that because you're using serverless and things can scale automatically, you're not in there like making adjustments right before production, or ooh, we got a big spike in traffic, we have to go fix some stuff. It just handles all of that automatically for you. So I can't speak to that, but it could be true. I do also want to say that while this is DenverScript, so most of you are writing Node or JavaScript, this isn't just for Node. And if you really hate Amazon, it's also not just for AWS. And I say apparently because I've never used it outside of Node and AWS. And I also don't see a ton of examples for that. But I will say there are examples in C#, Go, Python, Ruby, and a couple of other languages for AWS specific serverless framework examples. And then there are also other providers besides AWS. So Azure, Google, things like that. So I encourage you, like, if you're like, ooh, I would rather not use Node or I would rather not use AWS, check out serverless.com. They've probably got some other technologies you can use. Okay, the bulk of our time today is going to be spent demoing this so that you can leave here today and kind of have a vague idea of what you need to do to get up and running. And more so than just a Hello World app, because I don't think that's incredibly useful, and it's not very, it doesn't really like help you get to where you probably are going to go. It just helps you get started with the one piece. I want you to get started with multiple pieces in the serverless framework, so I'm going to demo multiple pieces. I'm actually kind of thrilled that we didn't have a shorter talk because I'm going to steal about 5 minutes of that talk. That's cool. Cool. So we're going to start with the basic steps. And step 1 is you need to get set up with AWS. It includes creating an account, making a user using the IAM suite that has administrative access according to docs, but you can also do it with less access, which is much safer. And then we're also going to set those, you also need to set those keys in your local environment. I've already done all of this, so I'm not going to demo it for you, but I will show you the docs. Serverless has these available for you. You can also find them elsewhere because other tools use this as well. But the main idea is sign up for an AWS account. If you're like just Amazon, you can just type in AWS console in Google and you'll find it. It also talks about like what you get as a free tier user. So don't feel like you're going to be charged immediately for all of these services. It's really more charged by users, and you need a lot of users to get charged. Once you've got an account and you are ready to go and turn on two-factor auth if you need it, then you are ready to move on to creating a user. And there are other ways to do this, but I think this is the easiest way. Basically, we need a way to give our serverless functions that we're about to make permissions within AWS. And to do that, one way is to create an IAM user. And I'll show you what IAM is. And you create a user that has these permissions, so that when you are twiddling away on your code and you deploy it, it has everything it needs to do what it needs to do. And then it also is going to talk to you about using the keys that you get from creating that user, setting them locally on your machine, so that your actual serverless app knows those credentials as well. I really want to just point out this section here. The instructions above have you create your user with like really broad permissions. And I discourage this because if somebody gets a hold of those credentials, like they have a lot of access in your AWS account, and your credit card is attached to that. So I encourage you to take a look at this section and give it limited permissions, so that if something goes wrong, something is leaked, it doesn't really matter. I think it matters a little, but not much. So cool, I encourage you to check that out if you're interested in getting started here. As I mentioned, I've already done all of this, so I'm not going to demo it. The last thing you need to do is install the serverless CLI. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. I bet you can figure it out. But with that, we'll move on to the start of where I will demo. We're going to actually create the app, and we're going to use a template. SLS is just shorthand for the serverless command. So we're going to say serverless create. We're going to say, hey, we're using a template, and the particular template we are using is AWS node.js. So provider is AWS, language is Node. Feel free to look at the docs. You can see all of the other templates that they have. I encourage you to use a template because it's just much easier. And there's not a lot of like boilerplate. It's just like 2 files that it creates. So let's go ahead and run this. Check out what it creates. All right. So it's going to create a handler for us. And right now, it's just a function expression that's returning an object that has some of the event information and a hard-coded status code. There's a note at the bottom that says, like, if you don't use the HTTP event with Lambda proxy integration, then return something else. Really, we don't need this, but if you're not wanting to build like an HTTP API, then you can just go with this basic sort of return statement for your Hello World app. If you're wanting to go the HTTP API route, which is what we're going to do, then you can leave it as is. The other file that it creates is this big, giant serverless YAML file. And this is our config for serverless, and this is primarily where we're going to be working and where we'll spend our time. There's a lot of words in here. I'll let you read them on your own time. I want to point out a few key parts. So first off, we have a service. For your serverless app, you can actually have multiple services, so multiple YAML files, and then you can just have functions that live inside there. I'll leave the organization questions and decisions up to you. For now, we're just going to have one, because we're only going to have one function. Down here, we've got our provider information. This is going to be where we put like security information. I'll show that in a little bit. But you'll also find information like what writer we're using, what language. Hashing version is optional. You can read more about that on the docs. And then down here, we've got a functions section. This is going to map directly to our functions in our handler file. For now, we have one function. It's named hello. And we're just saying, hey, you need to package this function. It's going to zip it up when it pushes up to Lambda. You can add information here. I'll show you some of the information in a little bit. And then down at the bottom, commented out, is this resources section. That's the other section we're going to be using today. You can put things like an RDS database, and it will create that for you when you deploy. Or you can, we're going to use it for Cognito. You'll see that then. But basically, anything you want this config to create, you can put in the resources section. Yeah, so before we do anything, I mentioned that I want this to be an HTTP like event. So I'm just going to say events, and we're going to call it an HTTP, and then we're going to say the method is get, because we're just going to like read from a database eventually. For now, we're just going to hit the endpoint and see the message that was in the handler. And then we're going to just say the path. I'm going to say we're going to do like a quotes database. So you put it like that for now. Cool. So the next stage is to just deploy. Command is kind of small for y'all. The command is serverless deploy. We'll be using another command in a little bit, but this one kind of takes everything and pushes it up. So anything that's in your config, any of your functions, this is the main command you want to use when you've made lots of changes or it's a brand new build. What this is going to be doing when it's deploying is making a CloudFormation template. It's going to be making some resources in S3. It's going to make a Lambda, just one, because we just have one function. And then it's also going to be making an API gateway. And that is because we added this chunk of code. We were like, hey, we want an API. So that told Serverless to create a API gateway for us. So we can kind of see it in action here. I don't know if it's already completed or if this is old. Okay, so it's doing it right now. It says update in progress. This is the CloudFormation. I would also like to show you just like the other things that it's creating. So if we go to S3, we can see, hopefully it's made this chunk already. Yeah, so it started working on this as well, created that. Let's see if it's ready with our Lambda. This is a fresh, almost fresh AWS as well. So I have like one skill besides this. All right, it started this. It's got a serverless example dev hello. We're actually going to change the name eventually, but we also don't have to. And then I mentioned it's also going to make an API gateway. So let's check that out as well. Cool, and it's already started working on that. Ooh, and it's done. So sometimes it takes a little bit longer than that, which I was like, oh, let's see what it's already made. But check it out, because we have that API section in our config, it's just going to give us an endpoint that we can just hit. And it's returning what that function was returning in our handlers.js. Cool. So that's nice. This is our hello world example. I would like for us to get a little deeper. So to do that, I'm actually going to ask CJ to help me. I had a notebook with my notes in my backpack. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. I was like, where are my notes? Awesome. Thank you. Cool. So let's do a couple of things. I'm going to update the code first off. I already wrote it out because I don't want to spend the time writing code. Y'all probably write better than me anyways. So change the handler. I'm just going to get rid of all of this and replace it with a function called getQuotes that's making a query to using a DB file. So we're not actually making the query, but we're calling a function that makes the query. We're going to return the results of that query, or we're going to return an error. So nothing fancy there, but I do need to make a database file for our actual query. So let's get that in here too. So all that's happening here is I'm using PG, Node Postgres, and .env to read from the pre-made .env. I'm gonna walk you through where I get these values inside of AWS. But ultimately, we're just making a select statement. We're just querying a database. Right now, this database exists, but we're going to pretend it doesn't. And we're going to make a new one. You can make a database in your serverless config, but I encourage you not to. The reason why is it's kind of limited, and you can't like make tables and seed your database from there. You can do it locally, but you can't do it to like your server on AWS. So I don't really see the value in making it from the serverless YAML. I would prefer to just make it, deal with it, and then connect it in. Personal preference there, though, you can do it either way. For us, let's make a database, and this is exactly the database that I used in my last production app. So it seems like it's pretty lightweight, but it can handle a lot. We're just going to go to create database. I'll walk you through all of the bits and pieces that I use to create it. So I stick with standard create. I'm going to use Amazon Aurora. You can use these other ones, but I like Aurora because of the serverless feature. I'm going to stick with Postgres because that's what I know best. The key here is I'm going to pick serverless instead of provision. You'll note like it's pretty small, make it a little bigger. Provision says like you provision and manage the server instance sizes. I don't want to do that. That's the whole point of serverless framework is I don't want to deal with that stuff. So I'm going to choose serverless and let it decide. It's going to have a lower instance size when it's got lower demand, higher instance size when it's got higher demand. Fine by me. Let's just name an example so that I know to delete it. You can set your master username. I'm fine with Postgres. We do need a password because we're going to be actually editing in here in the console. So yeah, let's just do a password. Cool. There's some more settings. You can change capacity settings here. Like if you wanted to like go to sleep when it's inactive, do that here. I'm going to be deleting this, so I'm not going to worry about that. Connectivity is important. In case you're panicking because I'm showing like some secret-ish information, don't worry, I'm deleting all this stuff afterwards. So don't panic, but also don't be mad. You can change like your VPC, which is like the security grouping that this database lives in. There's also like specific groups that they can also live in. The important thing here is that we just need to remember what we set because our lambdas will need to be in the same group. So our VPCs need to match between the two or they can't communicate. Unless you like make your database completely public and open, which please don't do that. An additional configuration down here is the web service data API. And actually, I want to click this because I want to edit this, or I want to run commands on this database in the console. So to do that, you just hit this button, and then you get a little nice query editor in here. This is not something you normally need to do. You can run queries, through a load balancer or through an EC2 instance, whatever you like. But for our case, I don't want to spend a lot of time setting it up, so let's just run it in the console. The other information that we need is down here. We're just going to need a name. I don't care if we delete it, so I'm going to unclick that. But pretty much after that, you're good to go. You've got a database. So we're going to create that. It's going to take a little bit of time before it's ready for us to mess with it. So let's go ahead and let's move back here. So when we create this, if I go into example, again, showing you potentially unsafe information, but I'm deleting all of this shortly, so don't worry. You're going to need the endpoints. This is like the host. And this is what I'm referencing here. So you need that to be able to communicate. You've set the user, you've set the password. The other two items you need are this VPC security group. You're going to need that SG34 whatever number, and you're going to need at least one subnet. We need these things to make our lambdas communicate with the database. And pro tip, if you do not do this, you forget this step, you're going to see an error that says lambda timed out, and that's the only error you're going to get, which is extremely confusing. And that's my biggest gripe with AWS is their errors can be very vague and misleading. So if you see that error, think to yourself, are my lambdas in the right VPC? Probably not. So let's go ahead and add that like preemptively. I just copied what I want over here because I hilariously mistyped this when I'm speaking. So we'll just copy. I'm going to pop it right under this lambda hashing version. But basically, this is telling serverless, hey, put all of these lambdas into this VPC so that they can communicate with the database. Cool. After that, I think the last thing I'm forgetting to do is I need to install these two dependencies, but we should be good to go after that. So, yeah, I'll install BG, this is fast, and .env. Oh, all right, cool. Hopefully we're good to go. If we get any errors, we'll debug together, but let's go for it. I'm going to do SLS deploy, not doing any fancy deploy commands yet, because I want the whole config to go, because I just made changes to the config. So I might as well do the whole thing. It'll take some time. Let's check in on our database to see if it's ready yet. It might not be. I was worried it might take a little bit longer, just depending on internet and all that jazz. Okay. Looks like it's fine. Let's give it a try. So here's the query editor part of RDS, which I wanted to show you. You can choose a database. Once you've got your credentials in, you can reuse them. But for now, I think we called ourselves Postgres. I think we have the password. And I think I named the database example. So let's try that. It's still setting up. So if you didn't click the data API button, you'll get this error. But you'll also get this error if it's just not finished setting up. So we'll just give it a little bit more time, and then we'll try again. This one's also going. So let's go to my other database so y'all can see the query editor in action. I already ran these queries and like set up a table and seeded it with like one quote. So this isn't exactly what you'd do, but it's close enough. I don't know if I named it example. Let's find out. Cool. So basically, you can run any SQL queries you want, with the exception of some kind of advanced stuff, but it'll get there. They're making updates to it all the time. So all I did was I created a table, I gave it an ID and a quote column, and then I inserted one quote into it. And then to just see the quote, we can run that. We're just going to do a select all from quotes. We should see one quote. This is what we want to see when we hit our endpoint. So instead of all of this jazz, we just want to see an array with this quote. So hopefully that gives you a brief idea of how to use the RDS database with the query editor to get going and get started with this. Sorry we can't mess with that brand new database yet. But yeah, okay, that's still going too. Cool. We'll come back to that because it's not going to do anything different until it's fully deployed, right? So we're just kind of stuck with that until it's ready. Cool, but I'll talk about this. This is the stage we're currently in, which is kind of add everything you want. We added some code, we we made a database, we updated our database. One thing I'm just realizing that we forgot, and I say we, but it's actually we, is I changed the name of this function, but I didn't change the name here. So it's going to get a little angry. We're going to see like a server error when it finally deploys. So let's go ahead and just update that now, preemptively, so that when we deploy the next time, it will be ready to go. Cool. Did I miss it anywhere? I don't think so. All right, we're going to have to keep letting that go. All right, so as I mentioned, probably best to set up your databases outside of the config file, but try what you'd like. There's docs on how to do it in serverless config. I would also love to show you all how to do Cognito because it's so easy and so exciting. It depends on how fast the deploy goes. So we'll see how that goes. But there's also a lot of other stuff you can do. So if you check out the docs, this is just the AWS section, but there's like all kinds of events you can try out. WebSockets, I've never done it, sounds cool. You can look up an S3 bucket, totally fine. You can do an Alexa skill if you're feeling fancy. All of this is in here. Docs are pretty clear. There's also a forum that I highly encourage you to check out if you're into this, because they're going to be asking all the questions that you're running into. For example, that timeout error that caught me when I first started all of this so long ago. It was on that error for hours, and then of course someone in the forum asked it. So I encourage you to check that out as well. It's still not done. Ooh, okay. So cool, let's check it. It's gonna have an error, right? Because I didn't name that quotes right. But this is a good opportunity to show you how to debug this. Yeah, so I'm gonna set up another deploy because it needs to deploy the naming updates. So we'll let that run. But while we're doing that, let's figure out how to debug this. So right now we have an internal server error. If we check out the network, it's not going to give us any better information than that. Get out of here. Well, I lost it. Either way, I'm not going to show you any better information. So to see better information, head to your lambdas. You should see the name of the lambda that you're hitting. So we're hitting the endpoint of quotes, which maps to what we had it named earlier. And that name is hello. So I'm just going to go to the hello function. All of this is kind of nothing you want to mess with. Let your serverless config handle that. But you can go into this tab called monitor, and then go to CloudWatch. And it's going to have a log of every time this endpoint was hit. So I hit it twice. I think the one we want is at 47, because it's 48 after now. All sorts of stuff in here. But let's check out this one. Ooh, yeah, so exactly. Handler.hello is undefined or not exported. Well, you sure are right, because we didn't have it named correctly. So that's where you would go to, you would see console logs, find any errors. That's where you can go. It's also nice because all of these logs are happening for users in the wild. So if a user is reporting, oh, well, I was on at 1 a.m. last night and it was behaving really weird, okay, go in here, find the issue at 1 a.m. and see what the heck was going on, because that'll definitely happen. Cool, that one's almost done. So hopefully it's good to go and we can add Cognito, because that's the coolest part. But if not, we can also just move through. Wallace is going. How's it going?
Wow.
Swell. Okay, that's good. Anybody been to Meow?
What's that?
Anybody been to Meow Wolf yet?
Oh,
A couple hands raised.
so what is it? I keep seeing billboards everywhere, and I drove past it.
CJ, do you want to tell that?
It's a what?
Without rides.
Without rides. And probably
Oh, yeah. I was having to do psychedelics or something before.
I would call it a large psychedelic conference. That's what I would call it.
Love it.
Repeat it for the people following along.
So a couple of descriptions is it's an experience, kind of like Disneyland without the rides, or a large psychedelic art installation.
Take a gummy before you go.
Take a gummy before you go. That's what they say. Yes.
Yeah. I saw the billboards everywhere, and it was all just like,
Isn't it sold out? Oh, no. It's right here, man. Oh, there's tons of tickets.
Yeah, every time I drive by, it's just a swamp of people sitting in the parking lot.
I do recommend going a weekday, right after
Yes.
work, and you didn't have
I will second that. I went peak time on a Saturday, and there were so many people. So
the advertising is great. They had those billboards everywhere that were super generic and said nothing. And after the sixth one that I saw in the bottom left corner, it said Meow Wolf. And I was oh. And then when I was driving down Colfax, I'm that looks like a Meow Wolf.
yeah,
It's all coming together.
excellent marketing. Excellent, confusing, and slightly scary marketing.
Right. Yeah, I had no idea what was going on.
Totally agree. Well, this is is taking forever. So I probably won't show you Cognito, but I will just show you like how easy it is. For Cognito, basically the idea is Cognito is sign in, sign up, and like content control. It's off, run through AWS, and it's super easy. And on my slide it says easy in quotes. I don't mean like setting it up is easy. I mean like it's somebody else's problem. That's what makes it easy. Because you're not storing passwords on your own server. It's Amazon's problem. And that makes me sleep better at night. So that's kind of like one of the reasons I like it. I also like it because they've got some UI like utilities, so you can just like pull in a chunk that they already have pre-built into your React app, and it's like all done, ready to go. So that's pretty nice. They've got a good, easy to use is relative, but decently easy to use SDK for your front-end applications. So like you can just kind of run with Cognito for all of your off needs. To set it up in a serverless app, it's pretty straightforward. I like to make it in the config, and to do that, you just like comment out your resources and make sure that the indentation is correct, because indentation doesn't matter in this. And then you're just going to, I don't want to mistype this and lead you astray, but I think it's Cognito user pool. And then we're going to be like, this is what we're naming it, and then we're going to say, hey, would you mind creating a user pool? So when we deploy, it's going to be like, oh, they said they wanted this resource, we can do that. The other thing you need to do is like actually lock down the endpoint that you've written. So to do that, you run up to your events section. And again, I have this written down so that I don't get the indentation wrong. It's like the story of my life. So you just have to give it some information. So one of them is, I don't know why this isn't default, but you have to tell it what kind of integration. Seems like you can leave that off. Don't. It'll give you a really weird, misleading error. So you have to say, okay, we're using Lambda integration, and then we need to say, hey, you have an authorizer on this route. And for that authorizer, we need a type. It's going to be all caps Cognito user pool, and that's a variable it's going to know about. You don't need to find that anywhere. We need to give it a name. Doesn't matter what you name it, but for some reason it needs a name. So we'll give it my authorizer, and then we need to connect it up to that Cognito user pool down here, that resource that we made down here. So we're going to use a little bit of magic. The magic we're going to use is a function, get attribute, and all this is going to do is say, hey, we're going to grab an attribute from a specified resource. The resource we're going to grab is Cognito user pool, and the attribute we want is the arm. And the arm is just like the unique identifier that identifies this user pool for Amazon. Gosh, that's still running. But that's all you need to get it up and running. When you deploy this again, give it a minute or two after it says it's done deploying, because it actually takes like a minute to catch up for the endpoint. But then when you like refresh your endpoint, hit your endpoint postman or whatever, it's going to give you nice, glorious, unauthorized, and ready to go at that point. So sorry I can't show that to you because it's deploying, it's taking forever. But that's how you do that. Cool. I didn't need to do this all either, mainly because we didn't get to this point. But if you're messing with just like the code, not the config, then I encourage you to use this command instead. Serverless deploy function specifically. Give it the flag, the function flag, and then the name. And the reason here is that it takes way less time, because it's just going to package up anything that's relevant to that one function, and it uses that like hashing algorithm that we saw in the config to like compare them. So it's like, oh, these are the exact same, don't need to do anything. Or it's like, oh, these are different hashes, push this up. Great. So I encourage you to try that out so that you don't have to do this every single time you make a code change, because obviously that would take forever. Cool. There are also extras. I would say I've not used any of these, but you might think they're cool. I lied. I used one plugin. So they have tons of plugins. The only one I've used is Serverless Offline We use this for local development and testing. Highly encourage you to check that one out. It's really easy, makes it nice and fun to just noodle around in serverless on your computer. But just remember, like this is offline, so it's not hooked up to AWS. There are other things in here that seem useful. TypeScript plugin, but I'm pretty sure you could just write TypeScript and compile it and push it as well. Who knows? I'll let you research that. They have a desktop GUI. They also have like a GUI like web page as well. Haven't used either of them, but looks really good. Looks like you can see all of your functions in here and mess with them as you need, maybe even test them. So that's pretty cool. I encourage you to try that out. If you do, please DM me on Slack and let me know how it goes, because I'm kind of afraid to try it out, because I'm worried it's just going to mess with what I already do. But if you're fresh to it and you try it out and you like it, let me know. They also introduced monitoring recently, and by recently I mean like last year. I also haven't used this, but it's a nice visual. It looks like it would be useful. I typically just rely on the AWS monitoring. It's already supplied in AWS, but this would be a good way to like keep it all in one place. So let me know again, DM me if you try that out as well. Deploy is still running. We're going to give up on that. So pain points. As I mentioned, AWS has some pretty useless errors. I hope that they're working on that. I can't say that they are. That's not really a serverless framework problem. That's an AWS problem. Some other pain points are like if you create everything in your serverless YAML file, and then you go into AWS and you like mess with stuff. Like I don't mean changing some settings. I mean like deleting a gateway or something like that. Everything is going to go wrong. You can figure it out. You can solve it, but just be prepared. Like it doesn't know that you did that, and that's something that I watched a lot of people and I myself just kind of didn't think about, and then got into some hot water. It's also really not meant for gigantic applications. When the clients decided, my last clients decided that they wanted serverless framework, they didn't really plan on the application being as big as it was. So when we got around like 30 endpoints, it would take like 30 to 45 minutes just to deploy. And that's like not including testing if you've got CI/CD or anything like that. So heads up, it's really not built for that. We also had to like finagle stacks. Like they were just not built to handle so many functions. So you have to like break things into different stacks and all that jazz. It's totally doable, but if you've got a really big application, maybe serverless is not the right way to go. Cool. As a recap, sorry I couldn't show you the Cognito in action because that's still going. But hopefully at least showing you what to write will help you like know what to Google if you're trying it on your own. Because really that's all that these talks do is just help you know what to Google. So as a recap of what we talked about, serverless architecture theoretically should reduce time spent dealing with servers, and that potentially saves you time and money. Once again, I said earlier, I've never seen the receipts, so I don't know, but it seems like that's true, and I feel like that's true for me. Serverless framework itself is a tool that you can use to build serverless apps, so please try it out. But there are also other tools, so I encourage you to Google around. I find it fun, and you might too, which is why I've shown you. In case you were zoning out during the demo, I demoed using AWS. I used Cognito at the end, which you didn't get to see, but you get to see me write it out at least. We used API Gateway to make it an actual HTTP API, and we used RDS. We created an Aurora database in AWS, and then just pointed our app towards it. And with that, I will say thank you for your time. If you've got any questions, concerns, complaints, comments, please DM me on DenverDevs Slack. I'm just @Cass, pretty easy to remember. And again, sorry I didn't get to see that last Cognito part because it's still thinking about it. But I believe in you. You can try it if it's something you want to go for. And if you get stuck, feel free to DM me. Thanks a ton, y'all.
So is this usually just for APIs, or do you also, are there any other applications other than APIs?
Good question. So,
You
Well-
repeat the question for the-
oh, sure. For the live stream, the question was like, can you use this tool for anything besides APIs? The answer is yes. I've never done it, but they have like view tools, and they have React tools, so you could potentially like bundle your React app, and serverless will deploy it. I'm not sure how all of that works, but they do have it. And then I will also say that you can also just use the serverless and the Lambda functions kind of as standalone tools. So for example, my first time using serverless, we didn't have an API at all. The only thing we used the functions for was to kind of run like pretty data intensive like data manipulations, because we had like a data visualization app. And so we couldn't do all of that thinking right in the browser, so we sent it off and then would wait for it to come back. So technically, not really like an HTTP API. We're just using it as kind of as helper functions. So that's an option as well. Good question.
So at the moment, there's no way to split up that serverless YAML file into other smaller files that
Good question. I think you just have to have multiple serverless YAML files. Like, so you could do like 3 folders. Folder 1 is like your API. Folder 2 could be your helper functions. Folder 3 could be something just totally random or different, or like a view app or something. And each one of those would be their own serverless YAML file. So it's still going to get pretty large. I bet that there's a way that you could break down the YAML files. I'm not familiar enough with it, and I've never needed to. But like, research it, find out again, being curious about that. So you can do that, but I don't know about breaking it up further.
With a live chat question.
Okay.
Any tips on making the app permissions more secure? It seems like the default permissions are pretty generous.
They are. They're very generous. The default permissions are like, do anything. Yeah, so let me go back. So, oh geez, where was that? Okay, so here in the docs, this is still like pretty generous. I think you kind of have to be a little generous with this because it's got its hands in so many services of AWS. But down here in the bottom, there is like this gist in particular, and this is kind of small to read, but it's basically like, hey, these steps grant your app administrative access to your account. If you don't want to do that, you can check out this gist, and I like this because like this is the things that you like bare minimum need. And if you're like feeling adventurous, I encourage you to like use this permissions. Like when you create your user in IAM, and I just realized I didn't show that. I'm not going to show you like creating a user, because I don't want to accidentally leak anything. But in your console, you can go to IAM, and then users on the left-hand side over here, and you can create from there. But there's a section where it's like, hey, what permissions would you like? And you can use this gist wherever it went. Did I do it? First time. Thank you. Yeah, it's the best. You can use this gist to set the permissions, and then if you're feeling adventurous, just like delete the ones you think you don't need, and then add them in when you do eventually need them. That's kind of like what I encourage you to do, because you probably aren't going to need all these. Like if you're not building IoT, do you need this IoT permissions? Probably not. If you're not dealing with S3, do you need these S3 permissions? Probably not. But this is a good starting point. Kind of like pop it in there, remove what you don't want, keep this in a bookmark, and come back to it to add back in the ones that you end up needing. That's my recommendation. Cool. Awesome, thanks everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Awesome presentation as always. So feel free to hang out, drink up, nerd out. That's it.
The final sign off.
As a note, the deploy is still running. go.